Music is really important on our show. We probably do more scoring than a lot of shows.
I wrote the scores for a little over half of the second season of Buffy and all of the third and fourth seasons. The first thing that happens when I start to score a show is I look at a rough cut of the episode. Still in progress. It hasn't been completely finished, edited yet, and I just watch a videotape with temporary music that the editors put in to get a sense of what kind of music might work or might not work in the show. Usually the very next day there's a meeting with Joss, or if Joss can't make it for some reason, Marty, one of the producers, and John King, the music supervisor, and a music editor, and the picture editors, and we all sit down and watch the show from beginning to end and talk very specifically about where each piece of music will begin, where each piece of music will end, and what it's supposed to be doing. And this is called spotting. In a typical episode, there would be anywhere from 14 to 30 minutes of music, depending on the episode. After that spotting session, I basically get about a week to score the episode, and I do that at my own studio, where I have a lot of synthesizers and samplers and a computer, and it's all designed to simulate an orchestra. The musical approach is decidedly traditional. It's symphonic. It's every episode we treat as a movie, and we try to make it as dramatic and as big orchestral movie scores are. So that's basically the goal in terms of the style of the music. Then I usually bring in one or two real players to take away some of the inevitable coldness that you get from having a 100% electronic score. And certainly the electronics have gotten to the point where they can fool a lot of people into thinking they're hearing an orchestra, but bringing in a couple of players just takes it up that extra level. Usually a woodwind player who plays lots of different woodwind instruments, so I can bring in one person and he can play oboe and flute and clarinet and really give me a wide range of colors to play with. That's one great thing about Buffy and Joss, is that they understand the power of music and the power of score, and sometimes design scenes specifically to be carried by score. I mean, Hush is a great example of that.
It was not the most he'd ever written for an episode, but it was the most important it had ever been in terms of defining the gentleman and getting their really getting their feel. Riley's love theme, everything had to be very specific musically because it was doing a lot of the talking.
Chris Beck is a genius, and I think that the best music he did for the year was for Hush, because it had this kind of scary fairy tale tone to it. It was very effective and very creepy.
An episode like Hush, I knew the music would be presented so much in the foreground that I didn't have anything to hide behind. I knew the music was such an integral part of the storytelling that the standards that I set for myself on that show were really, really high. CD standards, if you want. You know, I felt like I was making a record as opposed to just scores, and the attention to detail, the amount of counterpoint that's going on within the music itself, the complexity of the music, it's just all multiplied by a factor of 10. There are character themes in Buffy. A perfect example of this is Buffy and Riley. I mean, we kind of knew at the beginning of season 4 there was going to be a new boyfriend for Buffy, and there were some hints of romantic tension prior to Hush, but I didn't really have the wherewithal at the time to have come up with a theme prior to Hush and to plant the seeds of that. So the theme that ultimately became Buffy and Riley's love theme was first heard in Hush when they kissed for the first time. And this was something that took me a few tries to get. But once I did get it, it seemed pretty plain that this was going to work for the rest of the season for them.
Chris Beck is a tremendous composer. He really, really has a way with melody. I feel like the right piece of music can just make something so haunting or so memorable.
There's an episode in season 4 where Giles wakes up and he's a demon. It's called A New Man. There's a lot of humor there, and the music was really over-the-top, monster movie music, like Godzilla on acid. I mean, it was really, and that really helped with the humor too, because the situation he was in was so absurd, and the music rose to that level of absurdity, and the out-of-control nature of his predicament, I think, was really enhanced by having completely over-the-top monster music. Superstar was also a really fun episode to do, just because, such a ridiculous alternate universe episode, and they knew they wanted the music to also take a bit of a left turn, and so we went a little James Bondy with a twangy guitar and almost big band style, spy horns.
Once again, your face comes back to me.
The big band that was playing, and then Jonathan sang, and it's actually not Danny Strong's voice. It's the voice of an actor named Brad Kane.
We came up with Brad Kane, who was an actor who actually appeared on the show in season 3, I believe, as Tucker. We brought him in because he's a singer, and I believe the singing voice of Aladdin.
We picked Serenade in Blue. It's just a beautiful song and romantic as anything.
There are 3 different times in which Giles sings in this season. He sings Freebird, Behind Blue Eyes by The Who, and of course the exposition song. Tony is a singer. He was in the Rocky Horror Picture Show in England. We've added to his characters so that his character will be singing to kind of show that side of him. Behind Blue Eyes was written on the script, and we said, oh, this is going to be fun. So we took Tony to the studio and recorded him singing Behind Blue Eyes, just him and a guitar. I actually played guitar in that track.
As my conscience seems to be.
For Freebird, Tony played guitar and sang.
Would you still remember me? Well, I must be traveling on now. There's too many places I've got to see.
The exposition song, Joss wrote it. It's basically dialogue that was put to music, so it's what it is. It's exposition. Giles is communicating to Willow and Xander what needs to be done, but through song. And it was very fun. We had to do a pre-record. Giles wrote the lyrics and the basic melody, and I got 4-Star Mary into the studio, and Chris Beck did an arrangement. We wanted kind of a 70s rock vibe to it.
I've got to warn Buffy. There's every chance she might be next. And Xander, help Willow. And try not to bleed on my couch. I've just had it steam cleaned.
The bands that we use, we like to use unsigned artists, particularly on camera, because it does add a sense of realism to the show. You won't see bands like REM playing the Bronze. It's small town Sunnydale. They're not going to be playing a little club like that. So I try to find bands that you would believe would be playing at this place. They have a local feel, but they sound good, and they look good. THC, which is now George Serra, who was the mastermind behind that band, was the music behind Veruca. The name of the band in the show was called Shy. And of course, George was on camera. He was the only one out of the entire band on stage that was the actual musician in the group. The bass player, the guitar player, the drummer We're not part of George's group. George is George. If you look closely, you'll see him on the left side of the screen. He'll be playing keyboards. The process we used for bands on the show when they're filming, most of the time we just use their recorded CD. We'll play it back on set and they'll lip sync just like a music video. There have been cases where we may want to re-record a different version of it. Splendid, for instance, we took them into the studio to record a softer version of a song they did.
How we got involved with the Buffy show, I got a call on the phone from none other than Joss Whedon. They came up with the idea of asking local bands around the Los Angeles area to come up with different ideas.
Some members of the cast got a hold of our first album and they liked it a lot and they played it on the set and we became big fans.
Our band had a song that didn't have any lyrics to it and we were having trouble finishing the song. So I thought, well, maybe this will work, and I kind of cut it down and came up with this little thing that was 30 seconds long. And from what he told me, this little piece of music that I sent him actually fit really well with the credits that they had already cut. And so they liked the sound of it from the demo I had made, and they asked us to do the theme song.
I think by season 3, we did a remix, or we actually brought them back in and we re-recorded the entire thing for a better, fatter sound.
And at that time they were putting out the soundtrack to the TV show, and they wanted a better version on the soundtrack.